Alrighty. Oop. Anything? Hello. There we go. Okay. Hello and welcome. All right. So pretty simple game plan for today. So obviously Wednesday, right? So next class is the first midterm. So today's class is basically just like we don't have any content to cover. We just do kind of a Q&A. So you can ask questions by putting up your hand or punch them into the Slido. Okay. And then if we get time, we should get time, we'll do a Kahoot at the end of the last kind of 20 minutes here. Okay, one thing I do want to kind of mention for next time before I get into the questions here is, okay, so next time, obviously, you're writing on devices. You can write on any device that you want, right? So you can write on your laptop, you can write on a tablet, you can write on your phone, right? You know, especially if you got kind of worries about laptop battery life, you know, phone can be a good option. It's really just multiple choice, so it's pretty straightforward, and it's not really like a huge deal, right? Okay. Trying to think. Yes, I mean sometimes I don't know about this room. Some rooms I've been in, the Wi-Fi is great. Some it's less good when everybody gets on. I've set up the quiz so you download like 10 questions at a time. So it tends to alleviate any kind of problems. But sometimes people like to use their hotspot or just their cellular connection, and that can alleviate things a little bit as well. If you are like totally uncomfortable with the idea of writing it on your device or your battery, you have a terrible battery on your device, you could ask me for a paper copy, right? Just send me an email, and I usually print out like 10, 15 paper copies, but just to make sure I have enough, shoot me an email and say I would like a paper copy instead. I think I already have 3 people that have asked, and I tend to overprint them, but yeah, pretty straightforward. Okay, I think I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's really important. It's really straightforward, right? It's 45 questions. It probably won't even take you the amount of time that we have in the class. Okay, how many questions? 45 questions, and you'll have as long as I can give you, right? So we'll try to hold off people coming in at the beginning of the next class for as long as possible to just give you, 55-ish minutes. But it's not hard. Can I remove this when the live stream is up? It should be up now. I believe it is there as we speak. It says it's streaming, so I don't know what to tell you. Okay, I have now removed this now that the live stream's up. Okay, answered that. Wow. Oh yes, there's this rail. I don't know if the power actually works in these rails that run under the seats, but you can try it. Okay. All right. Okay, let's run through these quickly. Are the questions straightforward or pick the best answer? I mean, I think they're pretty straightforward for the most part. There might be a few where there might be two. There's obviously multiple choice, and a lot of these I didn't write. Like there's about 150 possible questions in the whole test bank just for this exam, so I didn't write them all, and a lot of them I took from the textbook. So there's always, multiple choice, like 2 absurd answers that don't fit, and then 2 that are kind of possible, with 1 being the obvious one. So I guess it's pick the best answer. Are you allowed a formula sheet? Sure, you can have a formula sheet. Yeah, I think they're, it's obviously like multiple choice, and there's only 4 answers. There's none of the aboves, all of the aboves, or anything like that. And if there's a question that ends up being bad, right? Like a question maybe something I didn't cover that snuck in there, or just an odd kind of question, you know, maybe bad wording, I'll fix it later, right? Basically what typically happens is people come and review the exam, and then I sort of fix that question, I fix it in post, right? I fixed it after, so sometimes the grades go up a little bit after an exam, right? As people come in to review, and we try to fix that stuff. Especially with the electronic exams, it's super easy for me to fix it for everybody because I just rekey the question in eClass, which is why I like doing it this way. Okay, let me see. I'm just gonna see if there's any process questions. I'm trying to remember what's in the practice questions, to be honest. It's been a while since I looked at them. I put them together last semester. I mean, yeah, you should know all of the concepts. I generally, like, I don't try to put them so that you have to pick the name of the theorist outside of Marx, Durkheim, and Weber, because that's a lot of names to remember. So I try not to do that. Okay. I'm gonna go with that. In the practice midterm, why is this considered not a taboo? Is this the ancient Egyptian question? Okay, it's a weird question, and if I recall it, maybe I should go find it. It's because this is always the one, and I always need to take this out, and I always forget afterwards to take the ancient Egypt question out of the practice bank because it screws people up. I mean, in that culture, the way it's describing it, right? It's actually, you know, not a taboo at all. It's actually sort of better, right? They would have seen, especially in the royal families, marrying your sister or cousin or whatever as a good thing, right? So it's actually something that falls within norms, right? And then, you know, the question's sort of asking, you know, marrying someone who's not your relative would then fall into a sort of folk, right? It would be mildly punished, you know, with kind of social punishments. It's not that you can't do it, it's just that it would be seen as better to marry your sister. So it's a question that's asking things in a really sideways way. And I know it's not in the exam because I know I took it out of the exam, but it's still in the practice questions, just so that I can get this question every single semester. Okay, but that's why. Okay, where pattern, concept, percept, no, and proposition, no. I've taken that content out. So if a question sneaks in on the midterm, and it shouldn't, because I know I took it out last term, but I'll double check the test bank if I have time tomorrow, then I'll just fix that question later. But yeah, those concepts, I took them out. They're a little too nitpicky, and I just didn't like them, so I took them out. Okay, where should students with accommodations write the exam? So I did send out an email about this. It should have gone out at 8 a.m. this morning. But basically, you can write anywhere, right? As long as you have a registered accommodation, you should have been on my list. And you should have received an email that went out at 8 a.m. this morning about accommodations. You can do it from anywhere you want as long as you have a quiet space where you can use the e-proctoring, the SEM. And it's all in the email where I kind of described it. If you think you should have accommodations and you didn't get that email, please send me an email ASAP so that I can figure out why you're not on that list, because I did email everyone that the accommodation center has set for having accommodation. So other than that, right, you go to eClass, you go through the whole all the prompts for SEM, and it boots you into the exam. So that you can do it anywhere though. You can do it at home. You can do it, you know, on a hat. You can do it with a cat. You can do it here or there. You can do it anywhere. Okay. Okay, I answered this, 45. I mean, okay, we'll talk about generational cohorts. Like, there's not a question specifically on them, but like, if we're talking millennials, we're talking people born between 1980 and 1995. For Gen Z, anywhere from 1996 to about 2012. People born 1996 to 2012. That's all you really need to know. Okay. Okay. Pick the best answer. Can you have a cheat sheet? No. You do not have time, right? Like, a cheat sheet would not benefit you. Okay, now, let's not be silly. Okay, does everyone get the same questions? No. So the questions are randomly drawn from the entire bank of questions, right? So like I said, there's 150 questions. So it's random order, random question, right? So basically, you and the person next to you are probably going to get very few similar questions, right? You're going to get very different exams, and that helps, especially since screens, it's hard to monitor what people can see on screens. But if you all have different exams, there's no point in looking at your neighbor to see what their answers are because you all have different questions, right? So, okay. So only if, sorry, I'll answer this one, it was really easy. Only if you're doing the exam with accommodations and you're not here. I have actual proctors coming into the room, so human beings to spy on you, not machines. And frankly, nobody wants an entire classroom of people saying penguins live in Antarctica. So no, SEM is only for people with accommodations. So no, only if you're doing an accommodated exam, right, where you're not here, do you use SEM. Okay. So if I were, okay, hang on. What's the usual average for the exam? I mean, it ranges anywhere from, I've seen as low as 72, and I've seen as high as 83. I think is the kind of range. It more tends to fall right in the middle, around 76%. So that's the usual average. Boy, okay. So there are questions drawn, for the paper exam, there are questions drawn from the same test bank. But obviously there's only one version of the paper exam and there's not that many of them in the class. So those are all the same, right? But they're drawn from the same test bank. I didn't make up new and harder questions for the paper copy. Okay. Norms basically in this, sorry, I'm just seeing if I have, is this course, no guys, it's on the freaking syllabus. Should I wear a t-shirt that says the answers you seek are on the syllabus? Sometimes I feel like I should. Okay, let me clear this off. Okay, it's not, no, nothing in arts is curved or scaled, or at least it shouldn't be. How do I guarantee fairness with a question bank of 150 questions? They're all of equivalent kind of difficulty, right? So you get a mix, everybody gets a mix, and basically, that's as fair as you can get. It's all completely random, but it's not like some of the questions are much harder than another. They're all basically pretty equivalent. Okay, hang on. Am I clear? Okay. I just want to make sure. Scientific thinking versus scientific revolution. What's the difference between intersubjectivity and objectivity? Okay, so scientific thinking is just like a mode of thought, right? Where the scientific revolution is when that mode of thought became normalized as a way of seeking out knowledge, right? So the scientific revolution, which happens like in the 16th century, right, happens when people I'll answer one question at a time. I'm reading every other question. Scientific thinking versus scientific revolution, right? So that's scientific thinking is the way we learn to think through the scientific revolution. The scientific revolution is the actual events that normalize that at the expense of, say, natural philosophy. Intersubjectivity and objectivity are the same thing. They're just different words that mean the same thing. Intersubjectivity basically just means that different people looking at the same data should come to the same conclusion, right? Which is basically what objectivity means, but people basically started talking about intersubjectivity, like between different subjects, they all find this, and subject meaning people, they find the same thing. Okay, hopefully that answers that. Okay, the difference between values, beliefs, and norms. So values is what you care about, what you think is important, right? So basically, like, do you think it's important that women should have equal rights? That's a value, right? A belief is, like, I believe that, there is a God, or there is no God, or that, like something, like a basically expression of an abstraction, something that you believe in with evidence or without evidence. And norms are like social rules, right? Norms are the social rules that are roughly shared by people. Okay. Is feminism a major thought in sociology? I mean, so the main kind of lines of thought are functionalism, conflict theory, and symbolic interactionism. Feminism is a current of thought within sociology. It's not as prominent, and it tends often to be nestled, like you think of like a Russian nesting doll, right? A matryoshka. where feminism sometimes is kind of nested under conflict theory in particular is where you typically see it, right? So it's almost like a subcategory in a lot of cases of conflict theory. So it's not, it's not as big of a strain as say conflict theory, functionalism, or symbolic interactionism, though it's definitely still there, right? And again, it's often like queer theory as well, often kind of under conflict theory in terms of its like where it is. It's like a subcategory of conflict theory, typically. Well, you have to know the names of sociologists from concepts and theories somewhere in the practice. Yeah. Practice questions are something of a mugs game because I want to give you questions that I don't use on the exam. Mostly, I will give you, for the most part, the name of the person in the question, right? And I'm more looking for, your understanding of the concept that they articulated, more so than being like, who came up with this? And sometimes, honestly, it's just like I'm picking questions for the practice exam, and I might throw one in there it's a little bit concept, like name of the person, because I'm running out of questions to use. Okay. Okay, I think I did that already. All right, maybe we can knock off the ancient Egyptian question. No, sorry, this one's just a no. You do not get to look through the exam bank in advance. What would end up happening is you would steal my questions and post them on some online site, and then I could never use the questions again. Unfortunately, that's how it goes. So they are mine, and you may not touch them. Sorry. I've been burned before. During COVID, I allowed that, and I then had to redo whole exam banks. So I don't trust y'all anymore. Sorry. Okay, so for the Egyptian question, right, the way the question is phrased, right, siblings are the preferred partners, so it's not taboo in that culture. And it's asking, like, non-sibling marriage relationships are actually slightly less preferred, and that would be just a folk way. So, okay, I'm going to clear that. If you have an exam and writing an exam in the, no, they will, if you're doing it with accommodation services, they will give you a paper copy. I have given them the paper copy, so they should give you a paper copy, and if they don't, have them phone me and I'll give you the password for the exam. Okay, it is only up to culture, that is correct. I hate that question, that's always a hard one. Memorization-based, application-based, or definitions-based. I mean, there's a little bit of all of them. One of the popular types of questions that I like to use is what's called a vignette question, where it tells you a little story, right? Like, Sheila is a student at the U of A who, cares deeply about breaking down the patriarchy. What, sociological theory is she most likely to resonate with, right? And gives you options. I have a lot of those kinds of questions. Those are more like, kind of low-level inference questions. But yeah, I would say that's a lot of the questions is those kinds of very like short little vignettes to give you a kind of idea, a scenario, and then what would best fit this. That's a lot of it. There are like less straight up just memorized definitions. So I don't know. I don't know how to parse that out. Okay, you don't have to worry about those as they're in the textbook, but I took them out of the course because, like I said, they're a little bit too nitpicky, so let's not even jump into that. No need to confuse people. Can you have two devices open in case one fails? I don't mind you having, like, your bag, an extra device, like, in your bag. That's not a problem. I would just keep it put away unless you absolutely need it, and then you could just flag one of us down and be like, hey, my laptop has fallen apart. Can I use this? And we'll give you a quick yes, nod. It'll be great. But don't have two devices out because then it just looks like you're cheating. Okay. So basically on everything, so it's concepts and theories, sociological research, and culture. Those are the 3 units it's on. Uh-oh, what did I do? I broke it. Everything is awful. Okay. Okay, let me think about this. So I personally, I'm going to say I absolutely hate these questions. I'll answer NOME in a sec, because that's actually an easier question for me than how should you study for the exam. I mean, the honest to God's truth is I don't know, because everybody's different, right? And everybody has a different sort of way of studying. I mean, my way of studying would have always been to go back to my notes. You know, I would have always highlighted kind of key concepts and definitions and sort of memorized them. I know people love the practice questions, so you can go through practice questions. We're going to do a Kahoot today, which I will then post, and you can look at those questions again as well. So honestly, I would just like go through your notes, check it. If there's anything that doesn't make sense, you can go to the textbook, or you can go back to the lecture that it was in and find it and see if it makes sense. Email me if something doesn't make sense, but it's really hard for me to say how you should study because everybody is honestly different, and I've heard everything from, you know, people doing flashcards to people just reading through the notes the night before. And as to when you should start studying, I mean, honestly, that's a very personal thing for you. I would suggest now, or maybe, you know, what's the old proverb? When's the best time to plant a fruit tree? 30 years ago. When's the second best time? Today, right? So, you know, if you didn't kind of, if you haven't started studying yet, start now, right? Okay. All right. I hate these questions. Okay. I will never close the practice midterm. Until the day that the course ends, you can go practice for midterm 1 again, I promise. Okay, can I explain anomie? Yeah, I mean, anomie is a pretty simple concept, right? It's basically this concept from Durkheim. He thinks that in modern society, people get disconnected from social institutions, right? They used to be very connected to them when they lived in medieval villages in Europe. And it's essentially become, you know, people, as they move to cities and urban centers and away from those traditional communities, they got more and more and more disconnected, and essentially, you know, they now experience what he calls anomie, a kind of lack of direction in their lives that's drawn from the fact that they're no longer connected to institutions. How did Max Weber critique Marx's argument in conflict theory? Weber's basic argument in terms of conflict theory is that Marx is too wholly focused on economics as the only category that causes social change. Whereas Weber thinks that you know, religion, politics, culture can all also lead to social change, right? So Weber, if anything, expands what Marx thought could generate social change. Okay. I think I got that. Can I briefly explain? I don't know where you started and ended if you have a disconnected to what? Oh, disconnected to kind of social institutions. If you're talking anomie, disconnected from social institutions, right? So things like religion, family, other forms of community, right, that used to hold people very tight. For Weber, all of those things sort of break down as we move into modernity and urbanization especially, and so people get really disconnected from it, and ultimately, ultimately, then they sort of feel they don't know what to do with themselves, right? They no longer have those institutions to guide them, and so they become less connected and kind of directionless, if that makes sense. I ordered a microphone, but it had the wrong connector. It was different. Yeah, so, but hang on. Okay, let's take these one at a time. Is a counterculture a subculture? Yes, a counterculture is a subculture. It just happens to be a subculture that wants to overturn social norms. Okay, that's easy. Can I explain postmodernity? Basically, postmodernity is this movement that will suggest that there are flaws in modernity, particularly its focus on knowledge, and rationality as at the core of society, and that ultimately what that generates is just a bunch of discourses that are trying to achieve power for particular groups, right? So that like doctors become the most powerful group, and they use that power to manipulate people and make themselves more powerful, and so on and so forth, right? But basically it is an idea that all there is for humans is narratives, and all those narratives are geared at gaining power at the end of the day. Okay. So yes, the textbook is optional. The questions are very carefully curated, right? I didn't just draw, like honestly, there's like 1,000 questions for these 3 units. If I go to the textbook question bank, I picked a very small selection of them that fit exactly what I taught. So it's not like I just grabbed the whole thing and dumped it in. I picked them, I went through and I picked the ones that fit what we talked about in class. So it is, it's still optional, don't worry about it. And if something sneaks through that I didn't talk about, that maybe I talked about last term, and that question sneaks through because I imported the test bank from last semester, we'll fix it, right? Don't worry. Like if it's something you're like, we didn't talk about this, I'll be like, oh yeah, we didn't talk about it, and you'll get the mark, and everyone else who got that question will get the marks as well. I promise. I try to be as fair as I can. Okay, social hegemony. Hegemony is more related, not so much to social constructionism. It's more a kind of a conflict theory idea in that cultural turn of conflict theory, right? This idea that certain ideas vie for, like different groups vie to have their ideas adopted by the whole culture, and that idea becomes hegemonic. All right, will there be any questions on furries? I make no promises for or against. Yeah, there could be, but I don't know. Can I briefly explain rationalization? Rationalization is just this movement that happens from the Industrial Revolution that basically says we need to organize society to be as efficient as possible, right? So it ends up whatever the most efficient way of organizing any particular task within society, that's the way we go with, right? So that's rationalization. And Weber thinks it creates kind of an iron cage a little bit. Okay, I do want to wrap this up because I do want to get to the Kahoot with lots of time. Post-structuralism versus social constructionism. Post-structuralism, essentially, it's sort of the precursor to postmodernism, right? So, excuse me. It has this idea, I got the hiccups from talking too much. It has this idea that basically everything is narratives, everything is stories that are meant to kind of control people, so it flows into postmodernist thought. Social constructionism is basically the idea that any kind of social institution or norms, they don't exist in nature, but they're made by people, right? And so they're changeable by people. So that's social constructionism in a nutshell. I think, okay. Okay, all right. We study the previous lecture and slides exclusively and understand them well. Generally speaking, I think that's fine to get a good grade, and I've seen people get good grades that way. All right, hopefully last question. Which theorist would you attach to each thought? Karl Marx, conflict theory. Yeah, Weber can be a switch hitter sometimes, right? Sometimes Weber might fall into conflict theory a little bit. He's more symbolic interactionism for our purposes, but he does have a strong critique of conflict theory that expands conflict theory a little bit, right? So he can be in kind of both categories, typically in symbolic interactionism, and yeah, Durkheim is exclusively functionalism. Okay, I've done it, more or less. Okay, let's, I just have to pull the, oops, I had it open and then I closed it. All right, let's start that bad boy. Yeah, I'm reusing it from fall. I'm a bad person. Okay, classic mode. Up to 400 players. All right, I have to very quickly switch over this. Windows capture. We need to go to, there we go. All right. No one wants to play. All right, go home. No, I'm kidding. I have fabulous prizes purchased at the overpriced shop in Hub Mall. The mint arrow is a punishment for whoever gets 5th place. right. All right, I'm going to start it very quickly here. So if you're going to jump in now. Oh, so many people. How many people in? 124. All right. Chihuahua. Oh. All right, well, let's do it so we have enough time. I don't know where the sound is, but... Oh, I see. Okay, so why is culture important? Oh, what a strange question. Culture is impossible without human experience. Culture can detract from human experiences. Culture can supplant human experiences. Culture creates shared norms and values. I feel like this is really easy, but I won't comment. Right, all right, so pretty, right. So in theory, right, it is impossible without experiences. Oh, I have an auto going. All right, saying the Edmonton Oilers cannot win on Tuesdays is an example of what type of thinking? Is it generalization, overgeneralization, illogical reasoning, or the exception to the rule? Ooh, that one's a little harder. I'll say. I mean, lately they can't lose, so. Okay. Right. Why is it? Obviously, it's illogical reasoning, right? There's nothing inherent about Tuesdays that means the Oilers can't win. Okay. Folkways can be described as, is it right versus illegal, right versus forbidden, right versus wrong, or right versus rude, right? So think of my little chart. Which one was folkways? Right, it is right versus rude, right? Folkways are the lowest level norms, or mores are right versus wrong. Okay, Freud's mom hanging in there at third place. A sign you're dealing with a taboo is what? Is it? It can only be done in private. It can only be done in public. It causes revulsion or is considered rude. Right, this is, what is it, the ick? Kind of. Maybe I just gave you the answer. Yes, all right, that's an easy one, right? The idea being that taboos shouldn't be done at all, right? All right. Okay, when people artificially pose for a photograph, what type of bias is occurring? Is it reactivity, sensitivity, detached observation, or attached observation? What you're trying to avoid. All right. Yes, it's reactivity, right? People reacting to your presence as an observer is what you're trying to avoid. Okay. Indigenous resistance to colonialism is an example of which of the following? Is it rationalization, postmodernism, a rights revolution, or the erosion of authority? TikTok. We talked about this. All right, yes, it is a rights revolution, right? So asserting their own stories and then demanding what has been taken from them. Y'all are getting very excited. You really, really want those Skittles, I can tell. Which principle of research ethics makes debriefing research participants mandatory? Is it authenticity, anonymity, confidentiality, or voluntary participation? a little trickier. We only touched on this briefly. Oh, not so confident now, right? Still the majority, we're talking authenticity, right? You should be accurately representing what your research is about. I like that one. I like it. Aren't they all PhDs in yapping? What kind of link exists between storks and babies in Scandinavia? Is it a causal relationship, a spurious association, a time-ordered relationship, or a controlled association? Very good. Right, it is. If you think there's a causal relationship between storks and babies, it's time to go have a chat with your parents. Not my job. What kind of research is Statistics Canada's national census? Is it survey research, ethnographic research, experimental research, or a field study research? This one's easy. What is the census? If you know that, you got it. It's a survey, right? You fill out a bunch of questions with multiple answers. All right. I didn't bring a Kit Kat, I'm sorry. If you're aiming for a Kit Kat, you're gonna be sorely disappointed. What does a quantitative research process begin with? Does it begin with collecting the data, selecting a research method, a theoretical idea, or a case study, right? So this is, quantitative research is deductive. What's the direction of deductive reasoning and deductive research? Yes, it is a theoretical idea, right? You have a theory, you develop a hypothesis, you get the data, you test the hypothesis. I like this. I could just leave and the quiz would run itself. Which term refers to knowledge based on customary assumptions that may or may not be accurate? Is this unscientific thinking, groundless thinking, scientific thinking, or grounded thinking? Customary assumptions. Right. Oh, good. You did great. That's an easy one. Man, it's a tight battle here. Which of the following terms refers to social relationships that are stable and patterned? Is it social forces, social solidarity, social maps, or social structure? The word social appears in all of these answers, which is probably what makes it a little tricky. What did we talk about? 3 subtypes of it, all of these things. TikTok. Right, we are talking social structures. Good job, everybody. Social solidarity is more what comes out of shared social structures. All right. Halfway home. The following term refers to the capacity to create a complex social life by establishing norms. Is it distribution, production, abstraction, or cooperation? They talk. This is pretty easy. Distribution? Yeah, maybe. No, it's not distribution. Sorry. Shouldn't set you in the wrong direction. Right, cooperation, right? You cooperate, you create complex social life through cooperation. Oh, I spilled on my shirt. All right, getting there. Which of the following leads to statistically significant research results? Is it the outsider's viewpoint, a representative sample, an experimental method, or sophisticated statistics? Right, representative sample, right? You need a big enough sample to generate statistically significant results. Alrighty. Oh, Man, my back is killing me. All right, if one variable changes systematically as the other changes, the variables are said to be, are they dependent, identical, spurious, or related? So they both, as one changes, the other one changes. They are related. Dependent would be only one of the variables is dependent. The two have a relationship, or there is a relationship between them. Okay, which revolution put forth the idea that humans can intervene in and change society? Was it the sociological revolution, the industrial revolution, the scientific revolution, or the democratic revolution? If you answer one of these, you'll earn my scorn and mockery. All right, pretty good, right? There is no such thing as the sociological revolution. The industrial revolution is about making things, and the scientific revolution is about how you learn. So it really only has to be that you can change society based on what people want. All right, this is an easy one. Which theorist is most responsible for the development of conflict theory? Is it Durkheim, Marx, Darwin, or Spencer? I would tell you that he has a great beard, but they all have great beards. Yes, it is my buddy, Karl Marx. Or Uncle Carl, as I sometimes refer to him as. All right. The idea that people use clothing to express their identities is consistent with which theory? Definitely questions like this on the exam. Is it feminist, conflict theory, functionalism, or symbolic interactionism? Right, that was on those slides about the fashion cycle. Who thinks that? Tickety-tockety goes the clock. Right, so this is the symbolic interactionist reading of it. Feminist is all about patriarchal exploitation. Conflict theory is all about profit. Functionalism is all about identifying different social classes. What does the operationalization process do? It translates variables into a hypothesis. It translates patterns into hypotheses. It translates concepts into variables, or it translates patterns into propositions. All right, good job, yeah. Concepts into variables, right? So it translates something like religiosity into something that you can measure, right? And that has multiple values. Okay, the following image is an example of which of the following? Right, is it consumerism, culture jamming, a counterculture, or virtual culture, right? There's an upside down McDonald's sign, a BMW logo that says buy, a star on the Heineken logo that says consume, and I think that's, I don't know what the bottom one is, right? Right, it is culture jamming, right? Because they're taking symbols of the culture and transforming them. Okay. Punks in the 1970s are an example of, is it a counterculture, culture jamming, cultural capital, or a subculture? Right, the punks are a counterculture. As we talked about, their picture is literally up on the counterculture slide. So that's one of the two examples I used along with hip hop. So pretty easy. What do we call the relationship between two variables that is accidental? Is it a spurious relationship, an independent relationship, a connected relationship, or a dependent relationship? Tick-tock, tick-tock. What is the link between ice cream and murder? What kind of relationship is there between those two things? Right, it is a spurious relationship. There we go. All right, 4 more questions and 4 more minutes. We should be fine. They take about 20 seconds to do, right? Oh. All right. Which theory studies macrostructures, shared values, and focuses on societal equilibrium? Is it conflict theory, functionalism, feminism, or symbolic interactionism? These guys are all German, right? So, except for Durkheim. Yes, this one is functionalism, right? And always think social equilibrium. If you see that, think, my friend, the functionalists. All right. The main advantage of an insider's viewpoint for acquiring knowledge of an organization is extensive detail of a group's activities, a global perspective, conformity to organizational rules, or a critical attitude. Which is it? Mes amis. Right, and that's an easy one, right? Extensive detail of a group's activities, right? Because you're an insider. Oh, it's down to the wire, kind of, actually. Probably Kit Kat has it in the bag, but we'll see. Which of the following terms refers to ideas about good and bad, right and wrong? Is this norms, theories, values, or scientific reasoning? One more time. Come on. There we go. Right, that one is values, right? All right, last question. Oh, Kit Kat got locked in place. There's still a chance. What are rationalization and consumerism examples of? Are they culture as lifestyle, culture as freedom, culture as privilege, or culture as constraint? All right, culture as constraint. Who is our winner? All right, here are our winners. If you won, come on up and get a prize. Oops, it restarted. Please don't do that. Stop now. How do I stop this? I'm just trying to stop this and then I will answer your question. Did you win a prize? Okay, sure. Sorry, I'm going to shut this off.
So would this be values? It's like something they hold.
Yeah,
They think it's
yeah, I think that'd be good. I think it should be. I thought I had made that one reviewable, but I'm not sure.
Another question. So, who constitutes the high culture? Will that be the primary
Upper class.
And then this one will be status quo.
Yes.
Okay.
You betcha.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hello.
Did you say that it's okay to write on your phone?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And it doesn't matter which one.
No, whichever one you want.
Thank you very much.
You got
Is
it.
there any possibility to enter in a different date, or is it like fixed?
I mean, it's possible if there's a good reason for it, right? Like,
So who do I have to contact?
yeah, just contact me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I've been like feeling like
Yes, perfect.
been like sick for like the past couple of days. So I'm just trying to figure out if I can do it.
Yeah, just email me. Like, if it turns out you're not feeling well enough, just shoot me an email and we'll go from there. All right. Cheers.